That patch by your mailbox? The one that goes crispy and brown every single July no matter how much you water it? You know the one? You've stared at it from the driveway, coffee in hand, wondering what you're doing wrong. Here's the truth I wish somebody had told me years ago. The thing that fixes that patch isn't in a bag that costs $50. It's not a service that quotes you $300 to come spray your yard. It's one ordinary thing that costs about $1, and it does something the expensive stuff literally cannot do in the heat of summer. I take no sponsors. I take no affiliate money. I'm just a guy over the fence who got tired of overpaying, and I'm going to hand you exactly what worked in my own yard for pennies. I'll tell you what this is before we're done, but I want to earn it because there's research behind this going back decades, real turf science, real measured numbers, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. And no, this isn't just for fresh sod or new seed. This works on the tired, struggling, half-baked lawn you already have standing outside your window right now. I remember the first time I tried it. It was a Sunday evening, late July, hot enough that the grass crunched under my boots. I mixed this into a watering can, almost as a joke, poured it over one sad strip along my back fence, and told myself nothing would happen. 9 days later, that strip was the greenest thing in the whole yard. So let me walk you through the 10 things you need to do this month, because if you skip them, you'll be paying for it well into fall. Let's start with the one that stops people cold. You are almost certainly mowing your grass too short right now. I did it for years. I thought a short lawn was a clean lawn, a tidy lawn, the kind of lawn that says a man takes care of his property. In July, that belief is quietly cooking your yard alive. Here's what nobody at the hardware store explains when they sell you the mower. Grass blades are solar panels. They're how the plant feeds itself. When you scalp them down to 1.5 inches in the middle of summer, you strip away the plant's ability to make food exactly when the heat is demanding the most out of it. Worse, that short grass lets sunlight hit the bare soil, and hot bare soil bakes the roots and invites every weed seed in the neighborhood to move in. Turfgrass researchers have measured this for years. Raise your cutting height to 3, even 3.5 inches in summer, and the taller canopy shades the soil so effectively that soil temperature can drop by 10 to 15 degrees underneath. That cooler soil holds moisture longer. It means less watering. It means crabgrass seeds that need warm, sunlit soil to sprout just sit there and never germinate. So the first move is simple. Set your mower deck up, not down, and never cut more than 1/3 of the blade at once. That alone will change your July. But raising your mower only protects what you already have. It won't bring back the color, and it won't touch the deeper problem underneath. Because here's the thing I didn't understand for the longest time. My grass wasn't starving for what the store was selling me. It was starving for something else entirely, something you can pour on for about $1, and I'll keep circling it because you need the whole picture first. Which brings me to your watering, and this one made me angry when I finally figured it out. You've probably got a little sprinkler running a few minutes every morning, maybe every evening, feeling responsible about it. I did that for years. Turns out that light, frequent watering is one of the worst things you can do to a summer lawn, and I'd been quietly training my grass to fail. When you water a little bit every day, the moisture only ever wets the top inch of soil. So your grass roots do the logical thing. They stay up near the surface where the water is, shallow and lazy. Then, one hot afternoon, the sun bakes that top inch dry, and those shallow roots have nowhere to go. The lawn browns out in a day. You panic, you water more, and you've made the problem permanently worse. The university extension people have a rule they've repeated for decades, and it took me too long to listen. Water deeply and infrequently. 1 inch of water, once or twice a week, delivered in the early morning before the sun climbs. That drives the water 8-10 inches down, and the roots chase it down deep, where the soil stays cool and damp even in a heat wave. You want to set a tuna can on the lawn and run the sprinkler until it fills to 1 inch. Then stop. Let the lawn get slightly thirsty before the next soaking. Now, here's where it starts getting interesting, and here's where I start getting honest with you about who profits from your confusion. The lawn service that comes to my neighbor's house every month doesn't teach him any of this. Why would they? A lawn that needs constant rescue is a lawn that needs a monthly bill. A lawn that's deep-rooted and self-sufficient doesn't call anybody. That's the quiet business model of the whole industry. And it gets bolder from here, because the next thing they sell you is the one that fights hardest against the dollar ingredient I keep hinting at. Let's talk about fertilizer, because in July, it can be a trap. Every big box store has pallets of summer fertilizer stacked by the door right now, bright bags promising a lush green lawn. Here's what they don't put on the bag. Dumping a heavy dose of fast-release synthetic nitrogen on a cool season lawn in the dead heat of summer can burn it right up. That salt-based fertilizer pulls water out of the roots when the plant is already stressed, and instead of green, you get streaks of yellow and brown that look like somebody dragged a hot iron across your yard. There's a bigger problem underneath, and this is the part that reframes everything. Most lawns aren't actually short on nutrients. The nutrients are already in your soil, locked up, unavailable, sitting there because the living part of the soil that's supposed to unlock them has been beaten down by years of salt, fertilizer, and chemicals. You've got a bank account full of money and no key to the vault. That's the whole secret, and it's why the expensive products keep failing you. They keep pouring more nutrients onto a soil that can't process what it already has. It's like force-feeding a man who can't digest. What that soil is desperately missing is life. Microbes. Billions of tiny organisms that eat, break down, and hand nutrients to your grass roots in a form they can actually use. Therefore, before we feed the soil, we have to deal with what's choking it. Get down on your hands and knees in the middle of your lawn right now and really look. If you see a brown, spongy, felt-like layer between the green blades and the dirt, that's thatch. And in summer, it's strangling you. A thin layer is fine, even helpful, but when it builds up past half an inch, it acts like a thatched roof over your soil. Water beads off it, air can't get down, and the heat gets trapped against the roots like a wet blanket. Here's the part that connects everything. That thatch is dead organic material, and in a healthy, living soil, it would be getting eaten and recycled by those same microbes I keep mentioning. When the soil is dead, the thatch just piles up year after year because nothing's breaking it down. So people rent expensive power rakes and dethatchers, tear their lawn to shreds, and never fix the actual reason the thatch built up in the first place. You can rake out the loose stuff by hand with a stiff garden rake on a cool evening, and you should. But the real fix is getting the biology back so the thatch digests itself the way nature intended. Feed the life in the soil, and it does the dethatching for you, quietly, for free, all season long. And what feeds that life is the same dollar ingredient sitting in my hand, still waiting. But even a dethatched lawn can be locked up tight underneath, so we have to open it up. Compaction is the silent killer, especially if you've got kids, dogs, or you park a trailer on the grass. All that traffic presses the soil particles together until they're packed like concrete. Roots can't push through it, water can't soak in, it just runs off toward the street. And air, which the roots need as much as water, can't get down at all. The trick everybody knows is core aeration, punching holes to let the soil breathe. Renting the machine runs you $70, $80 for the day, or a service charges well over $100. And it works. But here's what they don't mention. A hard, compacted, lifeless soil closes right back up within a season because there's nothing living in it to keep those channels open. In healthy soil, earthworms and microbes build a whole network of tiny tunnels, natural aeration that never stops. One good population of earthworms can turn over and open up more soil in a year than you'd do with a machine, and they never send a bill. Guess what brings the earthworms back? Guess what they're feeding on down there? The same thing I mixed into that watering can. We are getting very close now. Now stop for a second, because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this all sounds fine for somebody starting fresh, somebody laying new sod, or seeding a brand new yard. You're looking at a lawn that's been sitting there for 15, 20 years, tired and patchy and set in its ways, and you're thinking, none of this applies to you. I thought the exact same thing. This next part is for you specifically, so don't go anywhere. And feeding those microbes is almost free, but if you want the full system laid out step by step, I put everything into a guide called The Lawn Fix. It's a digital book that walks you through every one of these moves in sequence, including the exact recipes, the timing, and the troubleshooting for the stubborn spots most people give up on. It's available in the link in the description for $97, and more than a few people have told me it saved them from writing a check to a service they didn't need. It costs about $1, and it comes from a shelf you've walked past 1,000 times. And when I first poured it on that strip by my back fence, it woke up soil that had been asleep for years. I'm still not going to name it yet, because I need you to understand why it works before the word means anything to you. Now, back to what's choking the soil before we can feed it at all. My lawn was not new. It was a decade-old mess of compacted clay, bare spots, and grass that gave up every August. And the beautiful thing about this dollar ingredient is that it works better on an old, struggling, established lawn than it does on new sod, because an old lawn has years of locked up nutrients just sitting in the soil waiting to be released. You're not adding something from scratch. You're unlocking a vault that's been shut for years. Here's exactly how you do it on the lawn you already have, with nothing but a watering can or a hose end sprayer. You mix this dollar ingredient into water until it's about the color of weak tea. You pour it or spray it right over your existing grass, roots and all, in the cool of the evening. No tilling, no digging up your yard, no ripping anything out. It soaks down through the thatch into the soil and it feeds the microbes that are already living down there, just barely hanging on. Within a week to 2 weeks, on an established lawn, you start seeing it. The green comes up richer and deeper, first in patches, then spreading. The soil under your fingers goes from hard and gray to darker and a little crumbly. Earthworm castings show up on the surface in the morning, those little curls of soil that tell you the life is coming back. And that mailbox patch, the crispy one we started with, starts holding its color through the heat because the soil beneath it finally has the biology to hold water and feed the roots. I did this on a lawn that 2 different services had told me needed to be completely torn out and replaced. Do you know what that quote was? Just under $4,000 to strip it and resod. I fixed it with something that cost me $1 and change, poured out of a can I filled at my kitchen sink. Therefore, once the soil is alive again, you can finally deal with the weeds the honest way. Everybody reaches for the spray bottle. I did too. But here's what I learned the hard way. In a healthy, thick, deep-rooted lawn, most weeds simply cannot get a foothold. Weeds are opportunists. They move into bare spots, into thin spots, into compacted ground, where the good grass is too weak to compete. Crabgrass, dandelions, all of it. They're not the disease. They're the symptom of a soil that stopped supporting your grass. So when you fix the soil and the grass thickens up, you're pulling the welcome mat out from under the weeds. The ground is already claimed. There's no bare, sunlit dirt for their seeds to land on. For the few stragglers that do pop up, you spot treat them by hand or with a cheap kitchen solution, not by blanketing your whole yard and your whole family in chemicals every few weeks. And this is where the anger really set in for me, because I finally understood the game. They sell you the fertilizer that stresses the grass. The stressed grass thins out. The thin lawn lets in weeds. Then they sell you the weed spray. The weed spray beats down the soil life even further. The deader soil grows an even weaker lawn. Around and around it goes, and every lap around that circle has a price tag on it. The one thing that breaks the cycle is the one thing they will never put on a shelf with a big markup, because you can buy it for $1 and they can't build a business on $1. So let's talk about the shade, because even the greenest thumb struggles here. You've got that spot under the big tree or along the north side of the house where grass just refuses to grow thick. Most people keep dumping seed on it and watching it fail. Here's the thing. In shade, grass grows slower, makes less food, and has less energy to fight off stress. The last thing it needs is to be competing for scarce nutrients with dead soil. This is where feeding the biology matters even more, not less. When you wake up the microbes in that shady soil, they release nutrients right at the root zone, so the little bit of energy the grass does make in low light goes further. You also want to mow that shady grass even taller than the rest, 4 inches if you can, to give it every scrap of leaf surface to catch what light it gets. Don't fight the shade with more product. Fight it with living soil, and the same dollar ingredient does the heavy lifting there too. But there's one more thing that heat does to your lawn that almost nobody talks about, and it's the bridge to the reveal. In the peak of summer, your soil gets so hot and so dry that even the good microbes go dormant or die off. The very life you need to feed your grass is the first thing the heat kills. That's why a lawn can look fine in June and fall apart in late July. It's not just the grass suffering, it's the invisible workforce underneath going silent. And when they go silent, everything you pour on top just sits there, unused. The answer is to keep that workforce fed and hydrated right through the hottest stretch. And that means a light dose of this every couple of weeks all summer long, mixed week, poured in the evening, watered in. It's a rhythm, not a rescue. It keeps the soil biology alive and working when your neighbor's lawn, the one that gets the monthly chemical treatment, is going brown and crunchy, because all that treatment fed the grass and starved the soil. So let me finally tell you what this is, because you've earned it. It's Blackstrap molasses. Plain, unsulfured Blackstrap molasses. The same dark, sticky stuff your grandmother baked with, sold in the baking aisle for around $1 or $2 a jar. That's the secret the lawn industry has quietly stepped around for the better part of a century. Here's why it works. And it's not folklore, it's biology. Molasses is loaded with simple sugars, and those sugars are pure, instant food for the microbes and beneficial fungi living in your soil. It's also rich in carbon, plus potassium, iron, calcium, and a spread of trace minerals. When you pour that weak molasses solution onto your lawn, you're throwing a feast for the billions of organisms in the dirt. They wake up, they multiply explosively, and as they feed and reproduce, they break down thatch, they unlock the nutrients already trapped in your soil, they open up the compaction, and they hand your grass roots a steady supply of everything they need in a form the plant can actually use. This isn't some fringe idea somebody dreamed up online. Organic growers and old-time farmers have used molasses to feed soil life for generations, back before the synthetic fertilizer industry took over the lawn in the years after the Second World War. The agricultural extension programs down in states like Texas have written about molasses as a carbon source that stimulates soil microbial activity. Old horticulture manuals from before the chemical era talk about sugar and molasses drenches to bring tired ground back to life. It got buried not because it stopped working, but because you cannot patent it and you cannot mark it up. There's no profit in telling a man he can fix his lawn with something from his own kitchen. The recipe is almost insultingly simple. Take about 1 to 3 tablespoons of Blackstrap molasses and dissolve it in a gallon of warm water. Stir until it's the color of weak iced tea. Pour that into a watering can or a hose end sprayer and apply it over about 1,000 square feet of lawn in the cool of the evening. Water it in lightly so it soaks down to the soil. Do that once every 2 to 3 weeks through the summer. That's it. That's the whole thing the service has never wanted you to know. I stood in my own backyard, late July, and watched a strip of grass that 2 companies wanted $4,000 to replace come back to life on a jar of baking molasses. 9 days for the first strip. A full season to transform the whole yard. Deep green, thick, soft underfoot, holding its color and heat that had my neighbor's chemically treated lawn crackling like straw for $1. So here's what you actually walked away with today. Not a product, not a service. You just took back something that was quietly sold away from you a long time ago. The simple knowledge that your soil was never broken, it was only hungry, and it never needed anything more expensive than a jar of molasses to come roaring back to life. You're the kind of homeowner who suspected all along that you were being overcharged for your own yard. You were right. You don't need the monthly bill, and you never did. You just needed to feed the life under your feet. Now I want to hear from you. That crispy patch by your mailbox, the one we started with, how long has it been coming back brown on you every single July? Tell me in the comments how many summers you've fought that exact spot, because I read them and I want to know if yours is as stubborn as mine was. And if you're done being overcharged for your own grass, come stand with the rest of us over here who figured it out, the homeowners who refuse to keep writing checks for what a $1 jar can do. Subscribe and stick around, because the next thing I'm going to show you is the free kitchen mixture I spray on crabgrass that kills it down to the root without poisoning a thing around it. And once you see how cheap it is, you'll be as annoyed as I was that nobody told you sooner. So that's the overview, but I never finished the whole story of that $1 fix or walked you through every step on your own yard. That's waiting inside the Honest Lawn Circle. And when something puzzles you, you ask me right there, and I answer you myself. No bots. You're not doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time with one click. Now, if you've got those ugly brown spots staring back at you, don't worry. I'll show you a simple thing you can pour on them, and watch fresh green grass fill in within 2 weeks. That video's starting right here.